major contributor factor to this increase in sickness. Robert asked me to join, and I joined the organization. And so now I'm heading there, or the director of the 5G and wireless harm project. Before that, I worked under my own organization, which is called We Are the Evidence, because not only we have more than ample scientific evidence that this is very harmful, unfortunately we have also widespread sickness and the human evidence that it is in fact harmful. My background, I'm an attorney in New York and in Israel, and I'm also a telecommunication officer, so I understand also the technical part of wireless technology. And right now, in terms of the Children's Health Defense Act actions on this, when I joined Children's Health Defense, we decided that we're going to be very active, especially legally. I think until now, it was not really a good time for us to, we didn't have enough to go to courts, but now it's definitely the time to get to courts with this issue. So on February 2nd, we submitted a lawsuit against the FCC for its false health guidelines. And that's a historic case, because this is really the first time in 25 years that we got an opportunity to sue the FCC for the guidelines. And those guidelines are what enable the proliferation or uncontrolled proliferation of wireless technology and now 5G. So that is really how they enable this harm to happen. Those guidelines were obsolete when they adopted, and they're definitely obsolete now, and evidence is conclusive. We're also working now on a few other actions. And last week we tried to promote an ordinance, an emergency ordinance. I don't know if you saw it. We got a lot of report of wireless deployment during quarantine. So we tried to come up with legal solutions, and we actually found one, which was emergency ordinance. So we encourage municipalities around the country to adopt emergency ordinance that basically give them the power to prevent wireless companies from deploying farther antenna and or process application for more antennas. We were able to get more than 60,000 letters written to municipalities across the US, and created quite a lot of traction with that. So this is my background right now. If you have any questions, and let me know what you want me to talk about, I'll be happy to explain. Kind of like direct me where you want to take this call. Don't hear you. You're muted.
Yes, I know. Sorry. I had a little one trying to push buttons for me. So thank you for that introduction. I mean, we appreciate all the work that you guys are doing to expose the truth about 5G and why it's such a hazard. I know that you and Curtis had a call just last week that seems to have gone viral. Can you guys tell us about that experience?
Yeah,
I'll tell Curtis do his version, then I'll give you mine.
Okay, a little background on me. Those who don't know, I'm Curtis Koss, author of the book Vaccines Are Dangerous. This book here, and it is the second edition. The first edition came out in 1992. So I've been at this for like 30 years, warning people about the dangers of vaccines and related issues. And this 5G issue, I had a friend who's happens to be a very, very good researcher. And years ago, he was really hammering me about starting to research on vaccines. He flooded my email with all types of documents and everything else. And I'm like, look, I'm dealing with vaccines and a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't know if I really want to deal with another terror. I mean, especially if it's as bad as he made it. I would like the world is going to end if we don't stop the 5G. And but as fate would have it, recently I started doing a little research and coming across people like Dafna, who scared the daylights out of me on how bad 5G is. I used to think that vaccines ranked as one of the greatest threats to our society. I'm now inclined to believe that the 5G probably does rank as the most dangerous threat to our society in this country and around the world. And we had a really roller coaster ride of a debate last year. We had Professor Jabari, who normally teaches about history and religion and things, but he's gotten into the 5G issue. And I heard him early last week telling people that 5G was a good thing, and there were some risks, but those could be minimized if they're installed properly. And I could not believe my ears because Lupita, I knew that made no sense. And so I immediately requested a debate. So I had Dafna, she joined me in this debate, and I warned her in advance that some of these shows, depending on the character, can be pretty rough. And she was like, well, I'm Israeli. They can't do anything to me. They can't intimidate. I was a little afraid she might break down in tears as we got towards the end. She was really upset. It was brutal.
No, tears it's not, but I was tempted to hang up the phone more than once.
I kept sitting in text. I'm still under the weather, so I'm not sure how long I can stay on the call. But I kept sending her text saying, don't worry about it. The audience, there's a lot of smart people out there in the listener audience, and they'll be able to see through the smoke screen and charades of the other guy. And lo and behold, there was an avalanche. I think the last count was like 20.
Okay, let me read it.
Okay, go ahead.
I was titled "The White Queen of the Black Community" now.
Yes. She slaughtered him.
Okay, so now every time I get a bad mood, I just go and read the comments because they're hilarious. So here's one. I love how she looks at Jabari when he talks like a cat being amused by a mouse. Clearly, Jabari took the biggest loss here. Sister Matt got smoked off the phone.
Yeah.
Dr. Matt got body bagged by the White Queen. Me. I've never seen Brother Jabari get bodied like that. Anyway, it was very interesting. It was very rough, but it was interesting.
Needless to say, I would say like 95% of the people who left comments, and last time I checked, like 1,700 comments, they're all in favor of Dafna. Yeah, this guy, he's well known to the community and respected. She destroyed him, absolutely destroyed him. So that's what happened last week, and we got other things in the works.
Yeah, that was very interesting, and it was very important because I've been trying to get to the African American community, and I think that the fact that Curtis is now doing the outreach is extremely important because they're especially targeting minorities. I know 2 years ago I was I was flying to New York to meet with that. I think it was Attorney General's office, if I'm not mistaken, and I was on a flight. I was sitting near a guy who introduced himself as Al Sharpton's adopted son, and he's a radio host. And he told me after I told him, what my issues are, et cetera, et cetera. I said, wow, I have all the symptoms. Apparently, I understood that he suffered from electrosensitivity or microwave sickness. And he said, I'm going now to that our annual conference, and you should come there. And I did go. And while I was there, we discovered that their chain of churches were about to sign a major agreement with telecom companies to put cell towers in all of their churches. And we were unable to stop that. And then now Verizon has a project to put 5G in schools. And the first school that they install these systems and the virtual reality systems is a black school in Cleveland. So they're literally targeting minority communities, and so it's really important to awaken the African American community. Definitely. So thanks, Curtis. It's really important.
Yes, it is. Curtis, can you let us know, how can we help reach the community? I mean, how can we get this word across? That obviously that going viral, Dafna certainly must have helped. So if we keep doing stuff like that'll be awesome. I'm excited to go back and watch it. So what else can we do though? How do we wake people up?
In terms of, this affects everybody. It's not just a black issue, but I would say that radio and YouTube channels are very effective. They can reach large numbers of people, and you don't run into the same problems of dealing with the really big outlets that are already being funded by Big Pharma. So I would seek out local black radio shows, YouTube channels. It's out there, black newspapers, Latino newspapers, because, those little outlets can easily reach 20, 30,000, 50,000 people. And those things add up. And I would say starting to organize some forums specifically on 5G, because people don't know. And with the forum, you can start giving them a lot of information. And I've invited Dafna, she hasn't gotten back to me yet, to participate in the forum I'm having in Hispanic Black community in Harlem on June 13th. Bobby Kennedy is coming, and I think a presentation by her on the 5G would be monumental. So I would say, yeah, reaching out to the local Black media, local Black colleges, and organizing some forums, Black newspapers, find out what you have in the area. And not just, again, it's not just Black. If you're trying to target part of the Black community, great. But, you know, it affects white, it affects Latino. So, I mean, it's broad based.
And what I did in the past 2 years, I mean, we have the online, you know, the YouTube and the social media and stuff, but I learned that there's no replacements for human contact. And one of the ways I found pretty effective to affect to awaken communities, and I did it for 2 years. I literally just drove from one community to another and gave tons of lectures. And here on the East Coast, you have a lot of very, very talented speakers on this issue on the East Coast. And you can definitely engage one of them and invite them, organize a few lectures in your area and let them come, because if they do a good job, I think easily you can have 50 to 100 more people now, ambassadors on the ground trying to push this issue. It's more effective than a movie. Also because many times if someone will come to a lecture, they're more likely than to take action than someone just went on YouTube and watched a video. You know, it's very easy to go on YouTube and watch a video. Those who will take the farther action and will go to a lecture and will attend and will listen are the likely people to take action. And it worked. I mean, I'm not taking credit, but I do think a lot of it is as a result of my actions. I mean, actually today, a year ago, I came to California and it was dead. There was no activity. And it was really odd to me because, you know, Californian people are known for being very active and proactive, and there was no action on this issue. And I gave, I don't know, I gave 50 or 60 lectures all around the state. And now it's back to being, you know, California in the lead on this, with dozens of community fighting it and fighting the municipalities and hiring attorneys and submitting lawsuits. So I think if you do the legwork and get people who will do the legwork and do lectures, I think that would be a very effective way to create change, more than just videos and et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's different type of people. If you want activism, if you want people who will go to lobby, I mean, just like with the vaccine, you need people who will do more than just, you know, watch videos on YouTube and start post comments on Facebook. You need people to take action.
Yes,
Yeah,
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I would like to say though, I do think there's still a value in YouTube because
No, I did not disagree. I'm just
oh,
saying
okay.
that in addition, right. But yeah.
So it's good to
you need
pique interest in a variety of ways. And I say social media in general, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all those things can be developed to reach out to specific communities and have a resource where they know they can go get the latest updated information on this subject. So social media be another part of the puzzle in trying to get the word out.
Yes, I think every outlet that we can possibly utilize is very important, but you know, boots on the ground is always the most effective way, in my opinion.
Right.
So I do agree with that.
Yeah.
When we started CC Freedom Alliance, I mean, that was the basis of what we were doing. We were hosting educational events everywhere that we possibly could, because like you said, if people are committed and they're willing to show up, that's a lot different than saying, oh, boom, and then that's it. And then they forget about it.
Exactly. We don't forget, just comment and comment and comment. Yeah. Right. And I think that we are right now getting a lot of traction with this issue. On the other hand, we have a lot of pushback on the other side. So first of all, I don't know if you're aware, but almost all the media in the United States now is owned by telecom companies. Which is a huge problem for us. AT&T owns Time Warner and Verizon, and which owns CNN. Verizon owns AOL, Yahoo, and others. Comcast owns NBC. Carlos Slim, who is a major 5G and other telecom entrepreneur and one of the richest people in the world, owns the New York Times, and that's why you had all this article of like your 5G phone would not harm you, but Russia wants you to believe that it would. Steve Jobs' wife owned Atlantic. widow owns the Atlantic, et cetera, et cetera. So media is owned. I mean, Google, Facebook, even all the social media companies are owned by companies that have a lot of interest in wireless. I mean, Google is developing a lot of the transhuman technologies, including their artificial intelligence and facial recognition software, et cetera, et cetera. So they also launch balloons that will Wi-Fi a lot of areas in the world. So they all are, so Google is definitely invested in this technology. Facebook invested, it's also got license to launch, I don't know how many thousands of satellites to Wi-Fi the Earth. So all of them are invested in wireless technology, and they have been using now those who, that some people suggested that there is a connection between the 5G and the coronavirus. And by the way, Children's Health Defense, we published a very strong statement saying that we do not believe that there is evidence to suggest such a connection. They've been using that to basically crash the whole 5G movement. They actually on purpose try to target Children's Health Defense, although we were very clear that there's no connection. Nevertheless, the only organization that has been attacked directly is Children's Health Defense, and this is because they see us as the biggest threat between the vaccine issues and now our lawsuit against the FCC and other legal actions that industry is aware of that we took against them that are not yet legal action, but they know what's going on behind the scenes about things we're doing. They're concerned. And the fact that they're trying to attack us so brutally, and there were brutal articles against us in the past couple of weeks that basically just try to destroy us and connect us with that alleged conspiracy, it just a sign that we're doing a good job. But it means that it's becoming more and more difficult to get proper media for us.
Yeah, it's a big issue because between the telecommunications industry and the pharmaceutical industry, they own it all. They have it all locked up, and they're the only two industries that are not liable for all the damage that they're.
Yes, exactly. And it's the same with wireless as it is with vaccine. It's even worse. I mean, we don't have any way. We're just writing right now another legal action against the FCC. I mean, that's what I was working before this call. And I don't know if you're aware, there is something called OTARD, over-the-air receiving devices. This is a rule that is about to be passed by the FCC, or more correctly be amended, which basically means that your neighbor can put a 5G antennas on their roof and you cannot do anything about it or say anything. They don't even need a permit. So if we are all concerned about the 5G small cells, basically now they're going to put it on a neighbor home and they don't even have to go through a permit process. Nothing. So this is the next action we're going to take, probably against the FCC. So right now we're just writing the last comment to explain them what they're doing in violation of constitutional rights and other rights. Yeah, it's just no.
Isn't that insane? Like you have to ask for permission to paint the exterior of your house a particular color in certain neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm. But you can radiate people. Well,
okay.
the comparison we did is actually much simpler. You cannot put speakers, like you can put music at night, right? Because those sound frequency will go to your house and make you unable to sleep. But you're allowed to put a silent wireless radiation which transmits electromagnetic field wave frequencies that interferes with your sleep because it interferes with your brain waves, it interferes with melatonin production, it's causing harm. So that is allowed, but it's not allowed to make noise. So and that would be considered nuisance. So so it's just incredible. I mean, but we wrote a very brutal. The attorney I'm working with wrote me. I think they may actually try to disbar me for this. Particular submission.
Well, we certainly hope not, because we need your voice.
I wrote him, I'm usually not the right kind. I mean, like between smart and right, I'm usually the right, not the smart. I said, no, this time we have to be smart. You're not going to get disbarred.
So you mentioned earlier AI and transhumanism. Can you tell people on the call that a lot of people are aware of it, but some people are not really aware of what that whole new push is all about?
So essentially with the 5G, so there's a lot of misinformation as to what 5G is, and misconception and misunderstanding, and a lot of it, of course, it's on purpose. So basically 5G is not a technology. And that's a sentence I always explain. 5G, it's not a technology, it's a concept. 5G is an infrastructure. It's a word for infrastructure, for the Internet of Things, for artificial intelligence, for driverless cars, and anything and everything that will come moving forward. 5G is not about millimeter wave. Some people think that 5G is a millimeter wave. 5G is not about millimeter wave. Most of the antennas that right now are being deployed are 4G antennas. And that does not mean that they are not harmful. They're actually extremely harmful. And there is a good argument to be made, and I'm not saying true or false, that they actually may be more harmful than the millimeter waves antenna. So everything we had until now is very harmful, proven harmful by thousands of studies. And 5G is more harmful because what it means is more of everything. Why? Because all the technology we had until now, 1G to 4G, it was all about connecting people. 5G, it's not about connecting people anymore, it's about connecting things. It means that now, if until now you had like 4 or 5 wireless devices in your home, which is a lot, now you're going to have every device in your have a transmitting antenna. Your refrigerator, your laundry machine, your dryer, your heat system, your alarm system, your light bulbs. I was just now went to see a house and I saw that they have actually a nightstand which is wireless. So you just put your phone on it and it just charge your phone and you don't need to do anything.
Wow.
And they have, and this is I say every time, they have diapers with microwave transmitting antenna to text the mother whenever the baby poops. So this is what Internet Things is about. And according to the FCC, that means we're going to add about 20 billion more devices connected wirelessly. If you have so many more devices transmitting, you have to have more cell towers to connect, to collect the data and transfer it. And that's why you need more antennas. And that's why they came out with the small cell antennas. And essentially 5G is small cell antennas. It means that they're bringing those antennas to our neighborhood. So instead of those big towers farther away from our neighborhoods, now we're going to have like 4 or 5 antennas almost on every electric pole in our street. And not just that, they limit them in height so it doesn't look bad, but it just means that it radiates closer to us, sometimes directly to our bedrooms and to our street. And while those big cell tower may emit more radiation, since the radiation drops in the square of the distance, by the time the radiation gets to our street from the big towers, it's much lower than the radiation from those smaller cells. Actually, the levels of radiation we measure on streets with small cells are thousands of times higher than what they used to be before. So 5G is really about adding more and more of the infrastructure because, and it's not really about reducing download speeds. That's what they tell people. Clearly, reducing your download speeds from 8 seconds to 4 seconds does not going to pay for $200 billion a year infrastructure of more antennas. Something else does. And what is that? That's the data. The data they're collecting from all of your devices is an $11 trillion a year industry. And it's not data for marketing purposes. Marketing purposes is a very small part of it. Most of this data is for artificial intelligence purposes. So if you until now went on Facebook and you posted a picture of you and your friend and Facebook asked you who that person is, well, that's the data they sold for artificial intelligence. So now they have a database of all our faces, could analyze us and recognize us anywhere and everywhere we go. So this is what artificial intelligence is. And it's expected that within 10 years, 40% of the workforce will be eliminated because robots and artificial intelligence will take our place, even sooner. In addition, then there's another level of it, which is the transhumans. So Google chief scientist is a guy by the name of Ray Kurzweil. And Ray Kurzweil is a very dangerous man, probably like very smart person. And he wrote a series of books in the 90s. The most famous book he wrote is called The Age of Singularity is Near. And what it means is that what he says was that until now, humanity progressed in linear way, but now we are progressing in exponential rate. So the pace of change is exponential, no longer linear. And really where we're going with this is into transhumans, meaning that we're going to be part machine, part humans. Now, this is not some faraway science fiction. This is literally happening. And those of you who've been following Elon Musk know that he announced about 2 months ago a company by the name of Neuralink, which means that they put a device in your brain that will communicate with your wireless devices. Google, with Ray Kurzweil, developed a machine that can read our thoughts. And so this is really where we're heading. And so what I'm saying to people, that this is literally a defining moment in history in terms of where we are. All of these crazy telecom people basically pushing us to transhumans. I don't know. I don't want to live in a world where I'm with people who are machine. Anyway, people are zombies already with the wireless. I definitely do not want to take it to the next level. And chipping people for vaccine is just a very small part of it. So this is where we're really heading, and this is why I spend every second of my day working on this issue, because beyond the wireless harm, beyond the fact that I cannot work and function in this world, beyond the fact that I'm dealing daily with so many children who are sick from this, it's heartbreaking. I just know where we're all heading with this, and people just don't see the bigger picture. And because I'm aware of exactly what's going on, I know where this is all heading. It's bad, and I know that I have to give everything. I have to stop this insanity.
Well, we thank you for that, because I'm right behind you, and I just keep saying, like, how are we going to stop all of this? Like, these are
just
the most
one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other. We're getting stronger and bigger every day. I know where we were 7 or 8 years when I started with this. You know, there was not even one doctor, literally not even one doctor and one scientist in the United States that was willing to participate in an interview or organize. Not even one. And no media reported on this whatsoever. Nothing. So we did pretty good job, and it's definitely growing, and people are becoming sick, and that's also make them, you know, wake up, right. Unfortunately. So
yeah, I think that I'm sorry.
No.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that they're able to get away with a lot of this for the same reasons they're able to get away with a lot of this on the vaccines. Most people don't know. Mm-hmm. The average person has absolutely no idea. And a lot of them would be extremely upset if they did know. So every means possible, us and others like us around the country need to be doing events, social media, to get the word out so people start thinking about it. Just like with the vaccine movement. When I first started, there was no anti-vaccine movement in 1992. They could have passed any laws they wanted and gotten away with it. But over time, all the lectures and all the radio shows and articles and everything else, I know a portion of the anti-vaccine movement are made up of people who've heard about me, I mean, from my books, whatever, or a friend of a friend. So we should not underestimate the power of the people, so long as we can get them information and get them start thinking about what is really going on.
I think what's happening with all of this industry, they're following, you know, the playbook. We all know that they're doing the same thing. They took over regulatory agencies. They take over media. I think though there are lessons to be learned from what happened with vaccines, which I think right now are not in a good place, and that's what we try to prevent now. I think we're trying to sue first, not let them take all our rights, whatever left of them, but rather basically very aggressive with lawsuits, and that's what we plan to do now. Submit a lot of lawsuits against the government to stop this, because it's already complete insanity, but at least to start stopping it now, with the hope that Congress will wake up, because right now there's about 50 bills in Congress on this issue, and every day they're approving more and more of them and taking more and more of our rights. And so I think it's time to be very aggressive. Not that I am a big believer in the court system. I really am not, especially when it's come to government. But I think we have no choice but to sue and force everyone to wake up. And we really hope, I mean, I really believe that we're going to lead a lot of actions. I mean, the Children's Health Defense, and we created this really good system. We have now a system that it's called Click to Action. So if anyone goes in and let's say we want people to send something to Congress, all they have to is their address, and whatever it is that we ask them to send will be sent to Congress. And that's why, for example, with the emergency action, we were able to get 60,000 letters sent to municipalities across the US. And that was created, I mean, I have spies in different places, and I know mayors that contacted their attorneys and what's going on, what is this? And, you know, the attorneys confirm, yes, they are right, they can do that, blah, blah. So this is very effective. So if right now we're going to attack the OTARD regulation, and we're going to ask people to sign into some kind of a declaration and then send, I do hope that we'll get to 10,000 submissions to the FCC as well on this, and start to create real traction and scare the other side. I think we're definitely going to be on the attack. I mean, we wrote a very aggressive letter to Governor Newsom, and we inserted legal language there, basically to tell them how they violate the rights and how this is legally actionable. And that's what we want to start. We need to start to scare the other side. And I can tell you, we're doing it every day on the ground with cell towers near schools and in community centers. And we start to be in Verizon and AT&T face. They know that we are planning legal actions, and they need to start be scared, and they don't have insurance. That's the big difference with the vaccine industry. They do not have insurance to cover from health effects.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to dash, as I indicated probably before, 'cause I'm not feeling 100%. So, but I'll be happy to join other things going forward. Just, I'm always available. Okay.
Thank you, Curtis. We hope that you feel better. Be well.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
I feel better, Curtis. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So
I see a question here I can answer. Someone asked, Dan, hi Dan. Yes, if we can do, yeah, the letter is public. It's a long story behind it, why we didn't make it even more public, and it's a long story. It's just because there was like more and more crises. We were not able to finish one crisis. We have to jump to the other. But we, at a certain point, we planned to make the letter that we wrote to Newsom to be a letter to all governors, not just to Governor Newsom. I just didn't get to do it because we're just overwhelmed with work. The Governor to Newsom is on the Children's Health Defense page. Yeah, just go to CHD website and just search for Newsom, and you'll see the letter there. And in that letter, there is legal language, which is specifically for California, but it's also probably relevant also to Connecticut, and you definitely can put it and put it in every letter that you're writing, whether it's to a school or to the governor or to the school district or to Verizon. Just use that language. It is actionable, so if there will be lawsuits potentially, then that will give you standing for moving forward with lawsuits.
So as far as in the meantime, before we win all these lawsuits, and we're obviously trying to educate the public so people can take action, what can people do to protect themselves? I mean, we hear that there are all sorts of different paints, and there are certain metals and certain types of crystals and all these different technologies that are on the market today. Is there anything that people could do, particularly people that are electromagnetic sensitive? I know I have EHS, so it's a big thing for me. What can people do?
So first of all, if you don't mind, I don't like people using the word electro-hypersensitive for a lot of reasons, and it's really important. Language matters. First, you're not born sensitive, you're becoming. And second, it's not sensitivity, it's literally a sickness. You got injured by radiation that physiologically injured you. It's not sensitivity, it's not something wrong in you, it's something wrong with the toxin that attacks you.
Right.
If you're eating mice poison, you're not sensitive to mice poison, you're sick from mice poison, it's the same. And the terms we're actually using is microwave sickness, or radiation sickness, or radio frequency sickness. And the reason is microwave sickness is a condition that was confirmed by US courts. Already in 1981, there's a case from New York where the court ruled that there's more than ample evidence that this radiation in non-thermal level can cause microwave sickness that can even lead to death. So it's very important. The radiation sickness is a condition recognized by ICD-10. So it's a medical acknowledged by the ICD-10, which is very important because many times they tell you, hey, you don't have an ICD-10. It's like an international code of diseases. So there is radiation sickness for non-ionizing radiation, and that's why it's a really good term to use. So they cannot say there's no classification for it. But sensitivity, and definitely not hypersensitivity. So, so language. As for what we can do, I think there's a lot of things we can do in our homes. Robert did, we mitigated the radiation in Robert's house. We hardwired the house. We did a lot of things. We painted his bedroom with shielding paint, etc. And he took a picture of me in his house with the meters, etc. And I put that in, and then I got about 1,000 emails asking me what to do in the homes. So we're working on a webinar. So we'll do a long webinar where I go through different things on how people can reduce the radiation in their house and you know, take simple measures to protect themselves. And that's pretty long, but I think a few things. Number one, if anyone here is looking for a new profession or another profession, I definitely recommend becoming EF mitigation experts. You can go to courses by the Building Biologists Institute. Right now until today you can still get one free course online. But I do think that this is an amazing thing. It's getting traction. I mean, every time I go to and give a lecture, 50 more people want someone to come to their home and assess the radiation and hardwire, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think the demand is growing. I can tell you that so many celebrities are doing EMF mitigation to their homes. Now we just have to get them to be public about it. So this is really a great profession to go and learn. The first thing I tell people is to get an RF meter. I think this is invisible. I mean, we don't see this radiation. We don't smell this radiation like cigarettes. Some of us can hear it. If you have tinnitus or if you have this weird auditory sounds, very likely what you're hearing is the microwave radiation. Actually, the first study that our government ever conducted on this topic was a study on auditory effects, because soldiers in an Air Force base are starting to complain that they're hearing the radars. And that's also where the expression tinfoil hat is coming from. So when the scientist did the test, he actually created a metal hat, and he said, if I'll put that hat and we don't hear the radiation, it means that indeed it is the radiation from the radars. And that's how they conducted the study and proved that yes, people can hear this radiation, it vibrates in their brain. And not just that, in 1965 they did a study that showed that if you pulse the frequencies in different ways, it would create different sounds in your brain. Back to mitigation. So I really recommend people to get a radio frequency meter, so it makes the invisible visible. So you can actually see and start to understand what emits radiation, how much radiation. The one I like is the Cornet meter, and I can send you a document that you can send to everyone on this call. I really like it because it has, I can show it to you just a second. I'll bring it, I have it here. The reason I like this one, first, I think it's like the best. It's priced the best. It's like, I think it's $170, but it shows the levels. I don't think you can see it through the computer, but it has the numbers, actually the levels of radiation. Then you have the lights. Then you also have what I really like is the graph on the side, so you can see how the radiation behaves, which a lot of time is really helpful to distinguish what is the main source at that spot. For example, if you put it near a smart meter, you'll see very, very high spikes every couple of seconds, and that means that it's a smart meter. It also have a spectrum analyzer feature, so on the top it tells you the frequency that is the highest right now. So if so you know if that's the Wi-Fi, or is that the talk, or is that a cordless phone, etc., etc. And you can also hear the radiation. It has a feature that you can hear the radiation. Since I'm on speaker, you cannot, but it's very, very effective, and it seems that people are most affected by the sound. So that's very useful to start and understand the environment. Otherwise, it's just all theoretical, and this makes it real. And I tell a lot of time to women, many times the husband is not on board. And once you have a gadget, they're much more likely to cooperate. So it's really very effective. So yeah, I got the meter. Another meter that is very popular is the acoustic meter. It's bigger, so I like it less, and it also doesn't have the graph, but it's very it's very good, and the sounds feature is fantastic. It's very, very strong. So it's really a personal preference. I prefer more data, and this also measured the electric and magnetic fields of the house electricity, so it's another layer of it. So I think that's the best value for the money, but everyone
Could
can
you
make
type
their own
that
choice.
into the chat for us, for anyone who's interested?
Yeah, just a second.
That would be wonderful. I'm curious what headset you have on too.
Oh, that's the cheapest one they had in Best Buy.
I'm assuming it's not wireless, so.
Oh, nothing I do is wireless. Nothing.
You are a bright woman.
Actually, I was forced to buy a cell phone recently. My nieces came to visit me from Israel, and we went on a long trip, and there's no payphone or anything, and I felt irresponsible, and if I would not get one, and I got one, the one with no contract, but I got so pissed off reading all this article how now they're going to use to track us for the coronavirus and to see compliance. So I got a shielding that shields them all over. So even when it's off and in a car where it is all the time, they cannot track me. I just got so pissed off. I thought of like paying like a company to join in and just start a campaign for everyone to get those, just so they don't track us. It just pisses me off.
That's a great idea. I think most people on this call would love to know exactly what that is.
I can go to the guys. Basically, I got not just, like you have those cases that open and close. No, it's literally completely closed. So otherwise, even when the phone is turned off, they likely can track you. So I really get pissed off by that. Anyway, in terms of what other things. So most of the radiation coming into the house through the window. And so if I had to shield one place in the house, the first place would be the window. And you can do it pretty cheaply. I mean, you can get a simple, mosquito screen that is made from metal, will block the radiation. So metal blocks radiation. The problem with metal, it's a double-edged sword, because metal, it's on the one hand blocking radiation, on the other hand, it's an antenna and a conductor. So it's always, if you start playing with shielding your home by yourself, you definitely want to get a meter so you can see if what you're doing increases the radiation or decreases the radiation. And sometimes the same feature can decrease or increase radiation. So you have to know how to work with it and play with it. In terms of that, I think the most important thing to do is really to turn off the Wi-Fi at home. First at night, definitely at night. But I think that the Wi-Fi should be turned off at all times, and you should just go hardwire. And we did write an article because of what happened with the quarantine and remote learning. I wrote an article on how to hardwire, how to turn off the Wi-Fi router, and all of those things. And the article is on CHD's. On CHD website, so you can get it there. Every information, all the adapters you need, everything you need is there. So just go and read and start doing it. And I think it starts with a decision, and there has to be a family decision that we're stopping using this. And I think it's an essential decision. Just like there's a decision not to vaccinate, which is not an easy decision, there has to be a decision not to continue and use wireless. If people knew all that I know about this technology and the science that I know about this technology and dealt with the sickness I deal with every day from people, they would not touch this technology. They really would not. And of course, I don't tell anyone to believe what I say. I encourage people to go and research and do their own research. But in the meanwhile, turn it off just in case. And in terms of sleep, it's crucial because this radiation, there's numerous studies on the effect. They did. It's not, there's nothing to argue. It's studies that were done using EEG on the brain, and it showed that it interferes with the brain waves. And it's not interfering the brain waves of only people who already got sensitized to it or intolerant to it. It interferes with everyone's brains, and especially with the alpha brain waves. So that's one way it interferes with your body. Second, it reduces melatonin production, which is crucial for sleep. Second, if you have less melatonin, your body is less able to correct all the damage that was done to your body during the day from this radiation. So the melatonin is crucial to fight the effects on the body, but if you don't have enough melatonin because of this radiation, you also cannot get better. So it's crucial to turn it off. and any other wireless device. The thing is, and another thing that is really important to understand is that these meters are not enough to understand how harmful or not harmful something is. The level of radiation is only one small element of the harm. The most harmful element of this technology is the pulsation and modulation, which means how we put the data, the call, the text on the movie over the carrier wave. And that is basically what's causing most of the harm, not how much radiation more or less. So there are actually studies that show that with certain modulation, less radiation can be more harmful than more radiation. So these are very, very electromagnetic fields, and the way they interact with the body are so complex that if someone say they know what they're talking about, that and that for sure something is not harmful or is harmful, it means that they don't know anything about what they're talking about. This is so complex. But again, the most harmful element is actually the pulsation and modulation of this technology, meaning that it's not just a simple wave that going through the air. It's a wave that has data on it, that creating a lot of changes over the waves that causing most of the effects on the nervous system. It's like fluorescent light. A lot of people some people can get epileptic seizures from a fluorescent light because it flickers. And anything that flickers has more adverse impact on the nervous system. And the same with this technology. Putting the data or pulsing it is causing that non-constant agitating effect on our nervous system and various other systems in our body. And that's why there's more effects when we actually use it to transfer data. What else can we do that is really important? I don't remember what the policy is in Connecticut, but I think you can get opt-out. I think it was one of the first states. We talked about it in a previous call, I think. I think there is an opt-out in Connecticut. Definitely opt out from your smart meter, and do not put a shield over your smart meter. Some people think that if they put that shield on the smart meter, that's good. That's actually the worst thing you can do to yourself, because what will happen, you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. They have the smart meters, and you can buy a box to cover the smart meter, and it's made from metal. But what it does, it blocks from the radiation from getting out of the meter. So it's increasing constantly the power output because it's continuously trying to get to a tower. And now that it's blocked, it's also increased the wireless transmission into your house. So the box, I tell people, buy it for your obnoxious neighbor who doesn't want to opt out, but don't put it on yours. That's the last thing you want to do. So Wi-Fi is crucial. Smart meter is crucial. Turn all wireless devices, especially when you sleep and especially in your children's homes. I do recommend getting rid of all of those mattresses with the coil inside, the springs, because they act as an antenna. It's metal, and it's the way it's structured is even a better antenna. So that's not a good way to sleep, especially considering that even if you turn off all the wireless devices in your house, you still have radiation coming into your house from cell towers, from neighbors, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really important to sleep on a mattress that does not have springs. One more thing about the Wi-Fi. If you do choose to use Wi-Fi, or sometimes to use Wi-Fi, most Wi-Fi routers right now are using two frequencies, a 2.45 gigahertz frequency and 5 gigahertz frequency. And there's an amazing meter. If someone is a technical person and like all this stuff, I recommend getting a meter that is called RF Explorer. It's not an expensive meter. It's actually a spectrum analyzer, and it's about $300. And we were amazed when we started using it. So the 5 gigahertz frequency in a Wi-Fi router emits so much more radiation than a 2.45 gigahertz, and it has much more complex modulation because it's supposed to carry more data. So even if you use the Wi-Fi at home, turn off the 5 gigahertz frequency in your Wi-Fi all the time. The 2.45 is very bad too, but the 5 is a whole different level of bad. If I go to a house with a 5 gigahertz, I feel like my head is on fire. But again, those images from RF Explorer confirm what I was feeling, that the 5 gigahertz is especially bad. And it's very easy to do. Essentially, you go into the settings of your router, and in that document that I'm going to send you and you spread to everyone, there is an explanation how to do that. So it's pretty easy. It takes a second to do. So this is important.
Yeah, we're
Court,
looking forward to that. That's going to be
yeah,
an amazing document in the webinar that you mentioned as well. I can't
yeah.
wait to see that.
And thanks. And there's a question. No, no, after
Yes.
in Connecticut, really?
There are a few questions in the chat, and I'd also like to introduce my
No,
partner, Brian Festo.
just again, the Cornet meter is not to 2.5 gigahertz. The Cornet meters goes up to 8 gigahertz. What else? I ordered a meter to recommend it. Thanks. And please do not order those meters from Amazon. Please buy them from activists who have, you know, sometimes they sell some devices so they can make some money on the side. I don't have any commercial relationship. I got mine from stopsmartmeters.org. Josh Hart is selling those meters, and I think if you put Stop 5G on their field, you can get a discount. And just, it's not fair to buy from Amazon, who are, you know, they're actually promoting all of this bad technology. What else is questions here? Just ordered them. Thanks. What else? Really important. So cordless phones are like small cell towers in your house. Put them in a garbage and get corded phone. There's a lot you can do to stop using your cell phone. People can hardwire their cell phone. And again, in that document I wrote, there is an explanation how to hardwire your cell phone. So you can actually come home and connect it to the Ethernet with a cable and use it. I think that you can also forward calls from your phone to your home phone by doing *72 and then disabling it by *73. Baby monitor in the garbage. Nowhere else. And those, of course, anything that has Bluetooth also in the garbage. Bluetooth means Wi-Fi for short distances and a very, very intense network. And so anything that has to do with Bluetooth should not be out there, and definitely not in your ears or in your children's ears. So anything that is wireless is dumb, and everything that is not wireless is smart. And wired internet, wired headphones, wired, nothing wireless, as much as you can. And do not buy smart devices. Smart means that it have transmitting antenna inside.
And it's tracking you.
So there was actually, there was an FBA warning in December not to buy smart TVs because hacker can go into all your systems in your house through the TV. But they take away the right and ability to get non-smart devices, which is pretty dangerous.
Well, we're going to have you on for part 2 so you could talk just about the privacy and the surveillance and the threat to our national security and all those topics that we unfortunately don't have time to get into. But I would like to introduce you to Brian.
Hi, Brian.
My partner here at CTFA. He was on the call that we had a month ago as well.
I remember.
And he has a question for you, so I'm going to be quiet
Brian.
for a minute.
Really? I thought you would forget. but anyway, nice to see you again, and thank you once again for joining us and giving us so much useful information. We really appreciate it. I'm interested in the litigation aspect. You had mentioned that you're filing all of these lawsuits all across the country, and that's, you know, I kind of want to ask about the strategy, because the problem we've had in the vaccine movement, as you know, is we've gotten a lot of bad law because we haven't necessarily been strategic about the way the cases have been filed. Not through any fault of our own, because the places that we're getting beat down, the places where our rights are being attacked the most, are in these deep blue states, these very, very far left liberal states that tend to rule not in our favor. And tend not to rule for medical and health freedom. So my idea sort of has been, why don't we start and this is with relation to the vaccine movement, and I'm wondering if there's any way we can do something similar with 5G, is why don't we start filing lawsuits in places that are going to be more friendly to us, in federal circuits that are going to be more friendly to us? Because although the Second Circuit, of course, isn't bound to do anything, isn't bound to follow the precedent of the Fifth Circuit, if the cases first are filed there, if they're first filed in perhaps more conservative jurisdictions, then you'd have the first time a Second Circuit case, if I go into the Second Circuit as an attorney in the first case I file, a case of first impression in the Second Circuit, but I've already got a Fifth Circuit precedent and Seventh Circuit precedent and 11th Circuit precedent, and I go in there and I have all these other circuits, it's going to be much, much easier for me to make an argument to say circuits, all these courts around the country, these federal courts around the country have already ruled this way. Whereas when I bring a case like for the vaccine case, and the first time you bring it, like the Phillips versus City of New York case in 2015, you're bringing a case for the first time in the Second Circuit, but you haven't brought it in other jurisdictions first. You didn't bring it down in Alabama. You didn't bring it down in Texas first. You're bringing it first in the Second Circuit. And the reason for that is very simple, because that's where your rights are being trampled upon, right? That's where you kind of have to file them. But if there's a way we can get these cases filed in other jurisdictions, and I don't even know if it worked, because, for instance, in the vaccine issue, the higher federal courts are not necessarily more favorable to us just because they're conservative justices. I'm sure you're familiar with the Brucewitz versus Wyeth case in 2011. That was Antonin Scalia's decision, which was a horrible decision.
I think, yeah, I agree. I think it's, so we are trying to be strategic, and we submitted a case against the FCC in the Ninth Circuit. We believe that would be the best circuit for our case. We had to fight for it right now. We are still fighting for that circuit. There's another lawsuit that was submitted by against the FCC by another organization, by the Environmental Health Trust, and they went to the DC circuit, which I think is stupid. And the best proof that it was a stupid idea was the fact that once we submitted the case, the FCC asked to transfer our case to the DC circuit too. So if the FCC wants the case in the DC circuit, clearly that's not the right circuit to be heard.
Right.
And they're still fighting us. So it's still fine. We're able to get what we wanted. The FCC on purpose did not publish. I posted about what happened in a case. It's called Success. There's a post on CHD. I explained what's going on with the case. The FCC did not publish in the Federal Register on purpose because they were trying to essentially get us transferred and then dismissed, because to say that the case is premature, because they still did not publish. Long story, it's all in the records. We were able to force them to publish. So now we submitted an amendment petition for review. So basically we go now to the lottery. Now EHT, Environmental Trust, now submitted again fighting to keep and claim that since they were first to file, it should go to the DC circuit. So stupid. But anyway, it is what it is. So we're still fighting and spend a lot of money on keeping it on the Ninth Circuit.
And the Ninth Circuit is probably more favorable because they have a lot of good environmental law there, don't they?
They have environmental law, but you know, the reason I thought it would be best is not because liberal versus conservative, et cetera, and because I think this issue is also not necessarily liberal versus conservatives. This is something that affects everyone. You know, if I have a judge that his husband or their wife suffering from this, it's a done case. Or if they themselves felt the phone in their hand and know that it's causing them some pain, they may be more likely to rule in our favor. And so, and it's I think that the most important thing for me was going there because I know it's a good court. There's more likely, considering a previous decision, that it might be more favorable to us. They're hearing other cases on this issue, and I think there is some kind of a positive element if they hear a lot of cases on the same issue, because it starts to show them that there is an issue and they cannot avoid it and it needs to be addressed. And also some of our petitioners in that case are children, and medical professionals from that jurisdiction. And I think it's a personal issue. And I think DC Circuit is a very technical court. You know, it's more where most of the litigation, they don't have constituents allegedly. So I think it's a better place for us. So that's why we decided to fight it, but we're not fighting it anymore. So we're not answering EHT's filing on this. We made our case and we'll see what happens. In terms of other cases, I mean, I can assure you that we are strategic. I mean, we're giving a lot of thought and on this issue. And we do think, for example, that California would be a really good state for us to do a lot of the lawsuits on this issue. We actually just finished writing a big analysis of the California law to see if that's really the best place for us, and we are convinced that it is. I don't have the best. I'm not going to do analysis of all the other states, but we have some reason to think that that might be better, and we've confirmed them. So likely we'll use California. But on the other hand, we also think it's time to go really on the attack on the FCC and FDA, and we'll attack.
Have you ever thought? That's very interesting, and please do keep us posted on those cases, because I'd really like to follow that. Have you ever thought of taking the angle that we've taken in the vaccine movement about religious, a violation of religious freedom? And the reason I'm starting to think about that is I'm thinking of if these, the more and more infrastructure that's created, the closer and closer it gets even to more remote areas, not necessarily just New York City and places like that. So I'm wondering about like communities like the Amish community that would have strong objection to having the electromagnetic radiation anywhere near them, and could say that it's against my religion to have these kind of things going up in my backyard. I mean, do you think there would ever be any validity taking? I mean, that would probably be like a shot in the dark, because that's not like most of the country. But if somebody could make a legitimate religious, because for vaccines, even those that don't have any objection to aborted fetal cells, because not everyone does in our movement, we still have the objection because it harms children, and anything that harms my child is against my religion. So anything that harms my body is against my religion. So you're forcing something to be exposed to something in violation of my religious beliefs without my consent.
So I think there's a lot of similarities, but there's some things in difference. So in terms of the wireless, I think that the best argument to use is actually ADA and FHAA, because we have people who got injured and they're not being accommodated, and their rights are being crashed, and they have no way how to live. I mean, I went to look for, I need to find a place to live. I cannot find any place. I cannot live in an apartment complex. I can hardly live with neighbors. There's like 10 Wi-Fi networks here. I have to shield my room completely, otherwise my brain stops working. I cannot go on a street. I cannot go any hospital. I don't have how to live in this world, literally. And so I think that this is probably stronger for us than religious exemptions, and we have a lot of people and children who are sick from it. And so we're probably going to focus a lot on the angle, and that's what I've been telling people for a long time, including fighting with the municipalities on ordinances. I do think that right now in our submission to the FCC that we still didn't submit, that we're about to submit on OTART, it's definitely about body autonomy and all of those rights, constitutional rights. So I know that in the past there were people who were saying, hey, we should make the wireless like movement into some kind of like a religious group so we can get religious exception. But I think we need to solve the problem not by looking for loopholes, but rather attacking it directly and making headways. And while vaccine harms some people in terms of like some people get injured by them, everyone's getting harmed by wireless. And I mean, I can see the sickness all over. I can tell every day I'm on the street, it's like a rule for me. I talk to 10 people, and I can tell you without hesitation that at least 2 or 3 out of every 10 people already feel it physically. And I'm not talking about all the other impacts in terms of cancers and, on children with autism and children with ADHD and all this other reproductive harm. So I think we'll have I really want to not find those sideways to win this. I want to go heads on.
Right. And that does make sense. I mean, obviously, if you have people that are being denied, in your case, even very basic rights like housing, a place to live. I mean, I
don't have how to live. Yeah.
That's clearly discriminatory. But you know what? I have another question, because this is kind of segueing into another thing I wanted to talk about when you're talking about sickness and how many people are sick from this. It just reminds me also, I've heard a lot, not a lot, but I've heard some people sort of speculate and theorize that 5G or the effect of 5G on this pandemic right now is very significant. There are some people that go so far as to think that 5G even created this by activating the virus. I kind of want to. Some people just say it's maybe made it a little bit worse. It's worse in the symptoms. It's become like a complication. Even I don't want to say comorbidity, but if you have wireless sickness, I think that would be a comorbidity. So what are your thoughts on that? I wonder if you have researched that, if you've thought about that at all, if you have any thoughts to share with us about that.
So I'll start as the way I started this whole conversation by saying that we see no evidence that there's a connection between coronavirus and 5G. And the best
Okay, I'm
proof
sorry, I
is
might have
that,
missed that.
okay, that's the first
I came
sentence,
in
I
a few
think one of
minutes
the
late.
first sentence. And you can go to my Facebook page or to Children's Health Defense page. We made a very clear statement about that. And I've seen, hello? Yeah, and I saw a lot of the videos and those videos, I mean, literally ridiculous. I'm sorry. The best answer is there's no such thing as 5G, which is also how I started my conversation. There's no 5G in Israel, but people still think from the coronavirus. All of those data from China, the maps, I mean, you don't even know those areas that did not have coronavirus, if they are populated or not. You cannot know by those kind of like maps. You do not know what frequencies the Chinese are using for 5G, or is it just 4G? There's just, and nothing in those symptoms resemble the symptoms of microwave sickness. The only not connection, the only thing I would say is, if this radiation, definitely not the 5G, any wireless radiation is causing, is weakening the immune system, and we have studies showing that it has adverse impacts on the immune system. And however, the study that's showing that in the beginning, actually, of exposure, it may improve the immune system, but long term it can decrease it, because EMF have very complex bio effects, and it can cause, our body is electric, so it can cause actually positive effect, but it can also cause adverse effect. It can increase the brain, the way, the pace in which the brain works, but at the same time it will impair your ability to make, it will increase also the ability, it will also increase the number of mistakes you're going to make. So it have a lot of opposite effect, depends again, modulation, how much, how long, there's so many complexities. So overall it is adversely affect the immune system, and there are studies to show that. So definitely, if there's something like the coronavirus right now, and you want to reduce your exposure to this radiation, so you'll be better able to handle it. But I don't see any connection, and especially the main proof of it is you get it also in places where they don't have 5G,
Right.
because there's no such
That's,
thing as
that was
5G.
actually yeah,
And
that was actually my criticism.
it's
I'm
like
with you.
ridiculous to say it.
I don't believe it. The only kind of comeback that people had when I suggested, because I said the same thing, well, what about all these coronavirus cases in place? I guess people would come back and say, well, you don't know where they travel to. People could travel a lot and have gone to a 5G area and come back. Well,
there's no
that's
5G.
true.
5G is 4G, is the same as we had until now.
Right.
It's just higher levels of radiation. Only in a few places in center cities you have millimeter waves, and again, millimeter waves have less likelihood to impact your immune system. Again, and there's another issue, it's modulation. It's just so complex. It's just zero evidence. Everything I've seen there is ridiculous. Especially because we don't have any knowledge, for example, what frequency the Chinese use for 5G. It's just ridiculous, and it was very harmful. And from the beginning, I told people, don't say that and don't promote those videos. I just saw what's going to happen, and it did. And they're using it now, those conspiracy theories, to crush us all. And so it's pretty harmful. So yeah, so no evidence, period.
Thank you. Thank you. Dawn, do you have another question before we open it up? Oh, I think her sound is, you're still muted, Dawn.
Sorry, I've been kicked out of my own Zoom 3 times now. My whatever. Technology doesn't like me any more than I like it. What do you think about some of the other types of protection, as far as, like, I have a sleeve that I could put my laptop in, or I put my laptop on the sleeve, and like the Defender Shield phone case that I put my phone in, and the little sock that I put it in that's supposed to shut it off entirely. What do you think about these products? I've heard a lot of conflicting information. I have a friend who's an EMF specialist. He's tested some of these things. He says some of them work fantastic. Some of them are complete nonsense. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with him. I think there's a big problem, and there's a lot of fraud, and I think there's a lot of, it's very easy to test things in a way that will show reduction when actually used would not show and actually may increase radiation. As I said, anything that has to do with shielding and all of these fabrics, they're all metal based, and they can be an antenna as much as they can be a shield. And if not used properly, then they can harm you. So, for example, all of those phone cases, the one that have that you can open and close, right? So, first of all, what happened, because they have metal on the sides, now the phone has to work harder to try and connect to the cell tower. So they actually increase the power output. And it means that those areas on the sound, especially where the antennas are, you get levels of radiation which are significantly higher than they were before. And they don't even tell people not to use the phone this way. And actually people get higher levels of radiation. Furthermore, because there's so much more radiation now coming out from the sides, because the phone trying harder to reach to a tower, even in those areas that are covered, I sometimes measure radiation higher than it was before. The only thing I can see really helpful with those cases for cell phone is if you open them like that. So it's like, so to shield between your hand and the phone. That is probably the best way to
So
use
for
them.
instance, if I have
Right?
this case and I have it open like this, and I only use my phone on speakerphone and text messaging, is that the safest way to use it, or it's really not doing anything?
No, because you have the sides open and you actually have radiation higher now on the sides than it was otherwise, and it's very close proximity. So it's actually, unless you use it the open part farther away and the whole thing really far away, you're actually going to end up getting more radiation. And I have a friend who has a company for that, manufacture this, and he attended a lecture I gave, and we were not friends yet. I knew him, and after I said that, I said, I don't want to harm anyone's business. I said, if you want to say something, you're welcome to say. And he said, you're right, actually. And his partner got really pissed off when she heard about it, and I proved it to her. We went and measured, and I showed her that I'm right, that it's in some places it doesn't even reduces the radiation overall. In terms of other devices, there's so many devices out there. I'm against fabrics, and it's not that I'm against fabric in general. I think, first of all, do not use any shielding fabric on your body unless you're electrosensitive, because again, this is metal. It can actually aggravate symptoms for some people and reduce for others. We are electromagnetic beings, so our body also emit frequency. Now you put a fabric on you, that frequency now is reflected back and can aggravate the situation. And I know I feel much worse with those fabrics. They make me literally sick. And I know people that they're very helpful to. So I think unless you're a person who feels radiation and know if it's better for you with those fabrics or without, then you should not use them. Also, the fabrics create a lot of static electricity, which is also harmful, especially if you feel radiation, it's affecting you. If, for example, the people decide to shield their room in a more aggressive way, I recommend do it with paint and film on the window rather than curtains on the windows, or rather than um, um, the canopy. I cannot tolerate the canopy. I think in many ways it aggravates the situation. Again, because it blocks also from your body to get rid of those frequencies, and it's so close to you that you're going to be adversely affected by it. I definitely in favor of people painting their bedroom with Y-shield to block anything that comes from other sources. I've been in rooms that have been painted, and it's just incredible. It feels so good if it's done correctly, but it has to be done correctly. Don't do it yourself, because that paint is soft. It's carbon, it's soft metal, and it's conductor. And unless you put it correctly and know how to ground it correctly, again, you can aggravate the situation rather than improve it. But I do think that if people can make their sleep environment into a sanctuary of no EMF, that can be incredible. And we see it on Robert. We did one bedroom, we shielded completely and painted, and he said to me that this is the first time in 20 years he can sleep. So it's huge. And again, sleep is huge for us in order for our ability to recover. That's when our body doing that work. So I think it's crucial. So if you have the fun to do it, I definitely recommend doing the painting of the bedroom. But that means no wireless in that room at all. And I do recommend to people also to shield if they, I don't know if you have a good electricians in Connecticut who are aware of these issues, but I know that for me, I just spent 25, and I don't have money, like $2,500 just fixing the magnetic fields here, because I was feeling vibration all the time. And when there's something wrong in the wiring in the house, it creates very adverse effects from the magnetic field. So I suggest people to address the electricity part of it, not just the wireless, if they really want to improve their health significantly. And especially in the US, because the guidelines in the US are completely ridiculous in terms of the electricity in the house. In Israel and in Europe, you're allowed 1 to 2 milligauss. Classes that have more are being red taped, and children are not allowed near. In the US, you're allowed to have 2,000 milligauss. I've been in bedrooms with 60 milligauss. This is like, I don't know how can a person breathe there. And I just been today in a house that I went to see to rent, and the child was sleeping near with his head on 10 milligauss.
Wow.
That would be illegal in Israel, literally criminal. So so it just there's a lot to do, and but it's different layers of this, and I think the most important layer to address right now is the wireless. Just stop wireless, and if you don't use wireless, you don't need all of those shielding things, right?
Right.
If you just hardwire your laptop and you save also that money, and you use, I mean, there's just no need for them. I don't have any shielding material whatsoever, except to shield the windows here from the Wi-Fi from the neighbors.
Is there a website that you recommend people going to so they can find someone who's certified? Are there some places that are better to look than others?
The building biologists are, I mean, again, I think this is always a matter of personal recommendations. You know, even if a person going through a good course, I mean, a person can go to the best law school, they're not necessarily a good attorney.
Right.
Same with doctors, same with everyone. I think it's really important to get recommendations from people. I personally do not know anyone in Connecticut, so I cannot say someone is good or bad. But there's a lot of good people out there, and they work hard, and that's as far as I can go. There's another, it's not just, there's another company. I did work with a guy named Brian Hoyer. He has a company called Shielded Healing. I'm pretty impressed with his work. I actually helped them train their more people to do their work. I didn't get money for it, so it's not a commercial interest. It's just I just really impressed by him. And again, there's a lot of people who never went to a building biologist course. They're just electricians or engineers, and they understand this. I do, though, think that there's an advantage of using someone who suffers from electrosensitivity, because a lot of those people learn it as a technical things, and they look at the meters, and the meters are only a small part of the story. And people with electrosensitive are more sensitive than those meters, and it's very difficult for a lot of those building biologists who are not to relate to what they're saying. And so I do think that those who are suffering from this radiation are better EMF mitigators than others.
Right, that makes sense. I'd like to open it up and see if anybody that's on this call has any specific questions for you. Does anybody have a question they'd like to raise their hand, unmute themselves? It's a quiet group.
Yeah, no, I'm just reading if there's something. No, I didn't understand what David wrote. That's when you use a coronet. When I put my phone inside my and no read, and also my phone no longer receives anything. Great, that's great. Some of them are good, but then if you use it, then you cannot use it. If it reads nothing, right? I can just turn it off. Okay.
So if I understood you correctly, you just have a landline at home, you're hardwired. And
that's not a landline. That is actually a Skype phone that I'm using through the internet.
Okay.
So I can have the same phone number anywhere and everywhere I go, because I travel a lot for work. So it's a Skype phone number. It's on the internet. So everywhere I go and there is an internet, I have phone.
That's smart. And then you're able to hardwire whenever you travel?
No, unfortunately. I used to be able to find hotels that, although they have Wi-Fi, but at least they had hardwire, I would make tons of calls before I go anywhere. But that's becoming more and more impossible. But on the other hand, I'm in touch now with a lot of people who connected to the hotel industry, and I'm trying to work on at least getting them to do something or introduce back the hardwiring. So I think it's really interesting because we are making traction with this movie and with this movement, and so many, you know, people with influence or money are getting involved now. And I think we will be able to reverse some of those adverse changes that we had with technology. So I think hopefully sooner rather than later, we at least can connect to the Ethernet in a hotel. But
Yeah,
mostly I stay with people who are
like
lactose sensitive, and so they have wired internet. So yeah, so mostly I'm able to. But if I travel, then I go to Starbucks for 2 minutes, use Wi-Fi to see if there's something urgent, and then I get out.
On that note, I want to jump in, while we're getting towards the end here, and just give you a chance to plug. Is there any way that we can help out or help your efforts? Obviously people can make donations to Children's Health Defense. Is there anything else that we can do specifically to get involved and to help the movement, not only here in Connecticut, but nationwide?
I think first, thank you for asking that. I think right now we really need donations because again, we want to launch all these lawsuits and they cost us money and we need money, and I don't want not to do something because money, and I'm the kind of person who just do it. And I don't know, I just did the thing somehow. I just have to do it. I cannot not do it, but we need money. I think we definitely need more legal power. I think we need people to help us, or attorneys in the state, in various states, to help our efforts. I do need people who know the science to help me with a lot of the work. The problem is I need people who know the science for the kind of work we do. I need good writers. I need good editors. I always look for people to help me to edit documents and stuff. I think it's really important that people will work in their states. I think, we want to lead the direction and give ideas to people. But I think your best impact is in your community. And I think the people need to use their community power to educate and create a power to this movement. I think if you talk to other parents and then get Wi-Fi out of school, and will help you, but start educating parents, so there'll be a lot of pressure. And you have friends who are teachers, they need to know that they've been harmed too. And if you have a friend who is a school principal, then we need to get the grassroots growing and stronger, and people adamant about the fact that this cannot be. Or for example, to stop cell towers in or near schools. You need to educate parents so you can start and fight that. And places that people are fight strong, they are succeeding. So I actually really think that the community work in your community is really, really important for all of this movement. So I hope that answered my question.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much. And again, we just really appreciate having you on. Are there any other questions, Don, before we hop off? Because I know it's getting late.
I mean, I can keep Dafna on the phone all night long, but out of respect of your time and my time, and I need to get
Thank
bed.
you. Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Yes,
Well
we really
done.
appreciate it, and we hope to have you back. Like Don said, maybe we can talk about some of those privacy issues in more depth, and
Yes.
definitely get some more updates as time goes on, because we all need to stay on top of this. This is not something we can sleep on. I know we're involved in a lot of other fights here in Connecticut, and especially with this pandemic right now, our rights being under attack, but we can't forget about what's going on with this 5G infrastructure. I'm going to remember to keep calling it infrastructure and not technology.
Right. And it's really important because it's all the difference, and they're using those confusing terms. And so I tell people always, when you talk to a municipality, don't ask if they have 5G application, ask if they have small cell applications or 4G applications. And so and this, I mean, it's massive, and it's also part of the whole system to take away our rights. And I agree with you. I mean, there's really assault on all our rights right now, and the WAS industry is celebrating and using the coronavirus to further deploy, implement, and claim that there's more and more need of that, in addition to the tracking. We live in very bad times. I think, when this happened, the first word that came to my mind, it was September 11. Just like they used September 11 to take away a lot of civil rights, they're using this one. And on the other hand, a lot of people wake up. I mean, we saw something very, very scary, how quickly people follow rules and don't ask questions. I think that was very disturbing to see, but we know that nothing new about that, right? But they're really using this as a tool, and I think people are waking up for that.
Oh, absolutely. Before we hang up, one more thing did come to mind. David Michelle, one of our state representatives, is on the line. I had to step away a couple times. I'm not sure.
Our only state representative that
Well
voted
done.
no on the bill.
Thank you, David.
And what I don't know if you've connected with him, but my question is, or if he's connected with you, what is there any advice you can give him what he can do in the state legislature in Connecticut? Because obviously we already do have this 5G advancement bill that passed last year. We tried to halt it, put brakes on it with some legislation this year, but everything got, the apple cart obviously got upset this year with all of this. But is there anything specifically you could recommend that he be doing within the legislature?
First of all, I think right now we need amicus briefs for our case. Thanks for reminding me. So anyone who thinks they have a group that can submit an amicus brief to our case against the FCC, that would be important. If you can get state legislators, not only from Connecticut, whoever is with you on this, and then join other and write and submit an amicus brief, because basically your rights have been taken away also to regulate this issue. And considering we have so much conclusive evidence, it's outrageous. And I think that's an opportunity we all need to come together, because it's really nice that we submitted the lawsuit, or another group submitted the lawsuit. We're going to have tons of amicus brief from industry in that case. And we need to strengthen our side as well. So we need amicus brief on our side. So if there's anything you can do in that, I think that in terms of, as you know, that they took the state legislator power to regulate this issue. I think passing resolutions will be important and educating. You probably know better than I was on a phone with an attorney that represents tons of municipalities, and he said that almost AT&T has a lobbyist per state legislator, and they have same the other companies, and this is really what we're fighting. But I think if we educate the legislators, and then in a sense impacting their families, we have a chance of doing something. So if you can do anything to organize lectures in the state legislature to educate, or even in your home and getting more and more people, I think there'll be a point where there'll be, I think once you have enough people or enough powerful people on your side, you have a chance to get the rest of them with you and start taking action on this issue. I do think that we want to, I was trying to approach, and I think I mentioned it in my previous call with you guys. I did try and get attorney generals to take action on this issue. And I think if state legislator will start putting pressure on their attorney generals, that will be important to investigate for fraud, to initiate investigation for fraud, to investigate, to pass, for example, I'm trying to pass a resolution that a legal opinion to accommodate children with electrosensitivity in schools, or microwave sickness in schools. I think there has to be more pressure on the attorney generals to do the right thing on this issue. I was in touch a lot with your previous attorney general, but he was just listening, he was not doing, and a lot of them are very well connected to the industry because they're funding their campaigns.
Well, we have an attorney general that absolutely is in love with the camera. I know a lot of them.
I saw him. I didn't even approach the new one. He looked at me like, so sorry, don't quote you, useless.
Ours, well, listen, you're dead on, spot on, right about that. But one thing he loves is if he thinks he's going to get national attention, media attention for this. So if you can promise him that he's going to have a room full of national media if he speaks out against this, he'll do it in a heartbeat, because that's all he cares about.
Get him to do it.
He cares
the first
about
attorney
getting
general,
the camera.
If the first attorney general who will get on camera with this issue will get a lot of traction. And by the way, we have attorney generals on our side, and we are working on something. But let's say
he's not going to join with conservative ones, though. He's dyed-in-the-wool liberal, and he's partisan. He only cares about going along party lines. He's never going to cross party lines and stand with conservative attorney generals. So
he's not the leader. Bottom line, he's not. I would not waste his time on him. That's my impression. I said he's not a leader. I would not waste my time on him. Literally. I think just a kid that's doing work and was elected. I don't think he's there for the right reasons. That's right. But please don't quote me. I hope this is
you're right. In Connecticut, I'm not sure if you're aware of this. In Connecticut, the Attorney General's seat is basically just a waiting room for the U.S. Senate seat. So we had Joe Lieberman first, who was Attorney General and then went on to become a U.S. Senator. And then we had Dick Blumenthal, Attorney General, and then became a U.S. Senator. And now that's the only reason Tong's there is he's waiting for Blumenthal to leave, and then he's going to become a U.S. Senator. So he's not there for the right reasons. You're absolutely right. And I've met him a number of times and talked to him, and you're right. He's not very useful.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, and Blumenthal proved himself to be, again, Senator first, person who turned second, but I think your governor is a problem. He's completely bought off by industry. Completely.
Big time. All right. Well, David, do you have a question before we leave?
No, I was just going to say that I'm not going to get part of that. That's part of the conversation. But regarding efforts in the legislature, I have been focusing on educating the legislators or bringing information to those willing to listen, really from the science side. And I've worked with several people that I'm sure you're aware of, that you know. Who do we have? Clegg and then Deborah Davis and Blake Levitt was supposed to be there. She wasn't there. Well, she had an operation the day before, and then probably going to organize some more. But right now we are like it's probably going to be a Zoom at this time, informational forum if I do one. But no, I appreciate you also stressing that. People linking automatically the 5G with coronavirus is a mistake. It's hurting a lot of work that has been done before. So actually, I sent back some information to the legislature myself, coming from the science and from the side of fighting, or at least trying to figure out trying to get legislature that would be one, pushing back the liability on the telecoms. Two, I mean, they're not in order of importance, but liability on telecoms. Two, to get a commission. Commission is a lot of time useless. I know by experience. And but to have a commission, right now you have two governing bodies on PURA, which are PURA and the Siting Council. Siting Council was the cognizance on EMF, and PURA is the one really giving the permits. So that right there just tells you something. And PURA does not necessarily have the experience, neither the knowledge. So we want a commission that would sort of be appointed by the legislature and not by an agency, not by another state agency that legislate the legislation. And that would basically establish standards for health and public health and environment. And then there was another approach also on the legislative level, which was to go with the also education committee and to get them to also back up
the Wi-Fi schools.
Exactly.
And then I would just get a ban on cell towers. I mean, we're going to take that as a major thing, but I think you guys need to initiate a ban on cell towers near or far. Even if you'll be sued by the federal government, let them sue you.
Right. Well, I mean, I just took the approach where I told PURA, I don't believe that are these placements of these cells in my own neighborhood, and with the pictures of some of the cells, and I was like, are these are they really like legally permitted? I said, are they also like respecting the NEPA review process? And
the NEPA review is it's a BS, guys. That was a wasted lawsuit. It's not. It has zero impact. They are complying with NEPA. They're not. It's the NEPA. They don't need to be reviewed under NEPA. They're exempted from NEPA. So that case of DNR with DC is a waste of time and money.
Well, I've heard that the FCC is trying to change something about that now. They're fighting the change. So my intuition would tell me that they're fighting that because they've either have had to respond to it and spend money on responding to it, or because it might have some truth to it. I don't know. but
The
they're
truth is sometimes they exceed it, but only very close to the antenna, and so it would not exceed it in those places that gets to people, so they're exempted. But I mean, it's, you know, I think most importantly that a legislator will take a stand on things like children. And again, I really think that one of the things we'll try to promote state legislators to do is pass a law that bans cell towers near and on schools. And again, as I said, let the FCC sue you. And furthermore, the 5G infrastructure, to my opinion, is not covered by the Telecommunication Act. Because the Telecommunication Act talking about, you know, talk kind of thing, this is not meant for phone calls, it's meant for data, and it's not covered by the Telecommunication Act, and it's about connecting things, not people. So I think it's actually, there's a good argument to be made that the whole of 5G is not covered by the Telecommunication Act. If we have to make this argument in court, we will. And I want to believe that if it will get to court, considering the abuse of the FCC and forcing this in people home, which was never the intention of the Telecommunication Act, a court will agree, just in order to ban the FCC from continuing doing it.
And then the state is also, now regarding municipalities, the state is sort of taking a back step from it and said, we don't really regulate that, you know, that's.
They want it, they don't want to deal on it with anything. I mean, people don't want to work. And if someone tells me preempted, oh yeah, we preempted, we cannot do anything, our hands are tied behind the back. What you would want to do and help us, you mentioned Brian before, and again, I'm going back to the amicus brief. Yes, if you can get mayors involved, that would be, and to start we need people to initiate an amicus brief by mayors. I literally don't have time to breathe. And I want to get to that, but I don't get to that. We need mayors to get mayors together to start. And once you have some names, more and more will join. We need an amicus brief from mayors against what's going on with the FCC. And again, from legislators as well, and you can all submit it for one. One more thing I want to say, David. I mean, don't get discouraged, because my strategy from the beginning working on this was, you know, when I was doing lobbying in Congress, is that 20 to 30% of people have symptoms. All you have to do is make them realize that they do. And 20 to 30% of people in the state legislature have symptoms. And if they don't, their spouses do. And you just have to make them realize that. And once you get them realize that, things change.
Yeah. And regarding municipalities and the mayors, there is you know, there's COGS, right? And there's somebody, Joan Paulson, who's been writing to the mayors in I guess, Fairfield County. And so I think there's one or two mayors that are actually sort of voicing their position. So, you know, it could start there, but you be assured that the city of Stamford, yeah, that's not going to go anywhere. Not with our mayor. No, he's worried about the aesthetics, and he's worried about the weight of the cells, so it doesn't make a poll fall on one of his constituents who will complain about it.
If someone will start, now that CHD have that click to action system, we are going to encourage people to send letters to the municipalities to join that amicus brief. But we need someone to start and create. Here's something for you, Brian. Really, does someone need to lead that effort? And then we can help by sending those click to action messages and get more and more mayors on board. By the way, David, I love your necklace. So a year and a half ago, I was in August in Oregon, and I saw whales for the first time. And I was literally every day there for 2 hours, just watching the whales jumping with the tail out. And I was looking for a necklace, and I got not this one, a different one. I would hang it in my car. And I literally feel connected to those whales. And that's why I just love the picture behind you. I feel like from any animal out there, I just feel connected.
Dafna, you are actually connected to them. The air you breathe, 80% of the oxygen in the air you breathe is produced by the phytoplankton that is also maintained and by the whales, who are the gardeners of the seas. So you're directly all connected.
I literally had tears every time they would like jump out. People did look at me like I'm crazy.
Well, you know, maybe we could do another show just about the whales.
I'm in favor. I'll be there.
we do need to save them. We do need to preserve them. All of God's
so
creation,
magical.
Right? Yes, absolutely. So the only other thing, I did want to say, you mentioned the calls to action with the mayors. I did get responses because I filled out one of those forms, you know, that you had going around.
Yeah.
And actually, my mayor did respond personally, and one of the city council persons did as well, and said that they were going to look into it. They weren't aware of this, and that was about 2 weeks ago. I haven't heard back. Now, granted, there's a lot of chaos going on right now, so this isn't the #1 priority. They did actually respond with a personal message, not like one of those canned messages, and said that they weren't aware that this was going on, and they're going to go look into it and get back to me. So I'm going to follow up with them. But you know, I do think those are effective because people, especially now, if I'm going to give some advice, my advice is capitalize, just like they're capitalizing on ramping up the infrastructure.
Yes.
Capitalize on this downtime because they actually have
Exactly.
a bit of time to read, you know.
I think you're right on all of it, and I think that we, as I said, we got a lot of responses from mayor. And what was important, I didn't think that any of them is going to pass an emergency ordinance, but the point was we gave them all the legal arguments that they can use even without passing an ordinance. They just didn't have to process those applications anymore. They could tell those companies not to stop, and that's what we saw attorneys of municipalities telling the mayors that contacted them to tell them you can just. They're right. The arguments are right. You don't have to approve those applications now. You don't have to deal with this, and you can tell them not to install more towers. And so, and that was the main issue. And I think it was also a good message in terms of we fight back. We know the law as well, and it's time we use the law in our for our purposes. And I think also the numbers of letters and the fact that it was professionally written. It was not some kind of an emotional letter out there. It was legally and non-emotional and correct, and so many of them, they were literally overwhelmed. I mean, as I said, I have spies, and it was very interesting to see the correspondence of mayors with some attorneys, and it was very interesting. So it was effective, and we are trying to use this time to create more and more pressure. Yeah. So
Awesome.
I agree. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much
Thank you,
again.
guys.
I do want to end this because everyone's starting to fall asleep
I have
here.
so much work.
through no fault. They're not falling asleep because of you. It's because it's 10:22 here.
Yeah.
So
that's the time when the melatonin kicks in. So guys, go to sleep.
That's right.
So much,
Circadian cycle, right?
Yeah.
We
What's
really
that?
appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Likewise. Thank you so much. And keep the pressure.
We'll be in touch.
will.
Have a great night. Okay. Stay
Talk to you
safe.
soon.
Thank
Take
you.
care,
Night, guys.
Dafna.
Thank you.
Good
Bye-bye.
night, everyone.
Bye.